Well, good morning and welcome everyone to this session of Administrator Issues and Updates on July 29th, 2025. County Administrator Gary Schmidt, would you please call the roll for us?
Yes, Chair, thank you. Roll call, Commissioner West.
Here.
Commissioner Schrader.
Here.
Commissioner Helm.
Here.
Commissioner Savas.
Present.
Chair Roberts.
Here. Gary, would you please introduce the first agenda item for us?
Yes, thank you, Chair. We have a short issues list today, but you do have policy sessions starting at 11, so we'll be as efficient as we can. The first issue item today is Fatherhood and Healthy Marriage Federal Grant Application through Health, Housing, and Human Services. As promised, this is a new item, so we're bringing it to you first at issues before it goes on the consent agenda. Mary Rumbaugh, Director of Health, Housing, and Human Services, will explain. Go ahead, Mary.
I will try to explain. Good morning, Chair Roberts and Commissioners. So this grant, it's called FORGE, which stands for Family Opportunity Resilience, Grit, Engagement, and Fatherhood Program. It is a 5-year funding opportunity for children, families, and community connections to apply for to design a program that promotes fatherhood under 3 broad categories: promoting responsible parenting, foster economic stability, and promote or sustain marriage. The objectives of the funding include case management with individualized service plan for the participant fathers, for fathers to gain skills and tools that will allow them to be a healthy parent and co-parent. And some of the expected outcomes are that fathers are more engaged with their children and that they're provided economic stability supports and gainful employment opportunities. So we're looking for, hopefully, approval to move forward on that grant.
Great. Colleagues, questions or comments? All right, well, if there's no other questions or concerns, we'll advance this to the consent agenda on August 7th, our business meeting, and we'll turn to Gary as to what's next. Thank you, Mary.
Great, thank you, Mary, very much. Next is Advisory Board and Commission appointments. Andrew, go ahead, please.
Mr. Chair, I have 2 advisory bodies for the board's consideration today. The first is the Local Public Safety Coordinating Council, which is staffed by the Sheriff's Office and currently has 5 open positions, including for the position reserved by state law for a public defender or defense attorney. Presiding Judge Wetzel has recommended the appointee. The recommendation is as follows: Kevin Like to a first term ending August 2029. The board could approve the appointment or request further recruitment, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Questions, comments?
Chair, I move we appoint Kevin Like to his first term on the Clackamas County Local Public Safety Coordinating Council.
Second.
Commissioner Savas has moved to approve the appointment of Kevin Like to the Local Public Safety Coordinating Council. Commissioner Helm has seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, clerk, would you please call the poll?
Commissioner Schrader.
Aye.
Commissioner West.
Aye.
Commissioner Helm.
Aye.
Commissioner Savas.
Aye.
Mr. Chair.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0, Mr. Chair.
Right, clerk, what's the second advisory body for consideration today?
Mr. Chair, the second advisory body for the board to consider today is the Vector Control District Board of Trustees, which currently has 2 openings due to resignations of previous members. Recruitment opened to the public in June of 2025 and closed in July of 2025. Through this recruitment process, 7 applications were received and 2 are recommended for appointment. The recommendation is as follows: James Rhodes to a first term ending August 2029, and Everett Wild to a first term ending August 2029. The Board of County Commissioners could approve the appointees, select other candidates, or require further recruitment, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Questions, comments?
Chair, I move that we approve the appointment of James Rhodes and Everett Wild to the Vector Control Board of Trustees.
Second.
All right, we recognize those names. Commissioner West has moved to approve the appointment of James Rhodes, Everett Wild to Vector Control Board of Trustees. Commissioner Schrader has seconded that. Any further discussion?
I would like to thank staff for working on this.
Very nice. And Commissioner West also?
I want to thank everybody who applied for this. There were a number of phenomenal applicants, and I know it's front of mind for this board right now to bring some new community members to kind of maybe right the ship and stabilize the vector control special district. And so James Rhodes has had a long history of service in this county, also currently serves on our budget committee. And Everett Wild had a long-term great employment with Clackamas County and is recently now with the city of Wilsonville. And so they are experienced and trusted members of our community, and so I really appreciate them stepping up in this time. And we really need them, so thank you.
All right, Commissioner Savas.
Yeah, just want to just echo everything that's just been said, but just a personal thanks to James Road, Everett Wild for actually applying and stepping up and volunteering to do this hard work. So that's what I have, Chair. Back to you.
I think we're at a point. Clerk, would you please call the poll?
Commissioner Helm,
Aye.
Commissioner Savas.
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader.
Aye.
Commissioner West.
Aye.
Mr. Chair.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Gary, what is next?
Next is the Oak Lodge Library name. Last week, commissioners, you asked, did the board ever approve the naming of the Oak Lodge Library? And the answer is no, but here's why. The Oak Lodge Library is the name of the current library that exists in Oak Lodge, and you're not creating a new library, you're just doing a new building. So staff is suggesting, anyway, that you retain the name that you've had for years, the Oak Lodge Library. We've done the same for the Gladstone Library. We helped build a new building. It was not a new facility, it's a new facility, not a new structure, a new library. So we've retained Gladstone Library as that same name. I'm suggesting we retain Oak Lodge Library as the same name. There is some precedence here in the intergovernmental agreements that we have and the master order creating the library district and the service areas of the district all outlines libraries by their geographic location, except for one. But every other library in Clackamas County is named after the location of which it exists, except for the Leading Library in Milwaukee is named after someone, which 50 years ago was named after someone. But otherwise, every other library in the county is named after the geographic location it exists. So unless you object or you have other plans, we're going to name this the Oak Lodge Library in the new facility. But if you have concerns, I'm happy to hear them now, and we certainly can bring a naming discussion back to you.
Any concerns or questions? Seeing none, it sounds like you have the
It will be the Oak Lodge
direction.
Library. Thank you very much. Next, review of your board business meeting agenda for this Thursday, July 31st, 2025 at 10 a.m. You have a Housing Authority consent agenda item, consent agenda items for the Board of County Commissioners, and a board discussion item on discussing a performance-based franchise agreement with American Medical Response for ambulance services. We're almost at the finish line. This will be your final decision point. It is down as a board discussion item for you to make your final thoughts before you take action on that item. If you have any questions on any of these items, if you'll please let me know prior to Thursday, and I'll answer it for you, or I'll know to have staff in the room to answer your questions for those items. Thank you. Final item today, Chair, is Commissioner Communications.
All right, thank you, Gary. And I will turn it over to my colleague to the right, Martha.
Well, barring any more construction things that happen at the last minute, I would like to talk a little bit about, so thank you for taking over, colleagues, this morning. I really appreciate that. And totally unforeseen, but yes, it's Diana, you said that basically you get the price that's been given to you, and then you just, to be wise, you double it. So there you go. It's always interesting to have rehabilitation done in your home. But in any case, what I really want to talk about is I thought the retreat up at the mountain was really an excellent retreat. All of us were there. We had great discussions with everybody, and I think from my point of view, it's really always good to be there with our cities and our community planning organizations and us as a county. And I remember back in the day that for a while our cities weren't so sold on having our community planning organizations there, but we worked through that, and so they are now part of the discussion. So when we have these retreats, it is truly the entire county that is there, talking about the issues and helping to solve issues together. We obviously always talk about transportation, which is always a big piece in the room. And I'm hopeful that, and we also have talked about housing, because these are things that emerge countywide that we can help problem solve. And I did make a suggestion, it might be interesting to kind of include just a small piece of maybe economic development to get a sense of what the landscape is across our county, what businesses are here, what business clusters are here. Take a look at our land inventory and get a sense of not only how we can keep businesses here, but help them expand and grow. So that's about all I have. It was a great retreat, and it was fun to see everybody. And I want to thank my colleague, Diana, Commissioner Helm, for allowing me to stay with her overnight so I didn't have to drive all the way up to the mountain. So thank you for that. It was very kind of you.
All right, thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Savas.
Yeah, well, just want to kind of build on Commissioner Schrader's comments, and actually want to again thank her, but just let you know that back when, as Commissioner Schrader mentioned, C4 did not have representation from the hamlets, villages, and CPOs, and Commissioner Schrader, I was sitting there at C4 wearing that hat and special district hats, if you will, wearing a couple different hats. And I remember, was that 2004 or 5, I believe, Commissioner Schrader? But I want to thank you again for including them and making the group inclusive versus exclusive. And I think that has really resulted in a success and a collaborative group of people. And segueing into the retreat itself, I think we started off on a good note. As I told our staff, we ended on a higher note. So I thought both Friday and Saturday was very constructive. It was a great opportunity to help network. And as I've said before, when everyone's working collaboratively or working in good faith, you can solve all of our problems. And we've done a lot of great work over the 24 years that C4 has been around. Next year will be 25 years. But and a shout out to our staff who helped put this all together. So, we can't do this work alone. They did a great job. So just another success. And I thank my colleagues for being in attendance.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner West?
So I'll bring up an issue today. I got a chance to meet with 4 or 5 developers here in Clackamas County. We got together in Estacada, and they really began to kind of bend my ear around some of their concerns around how we do our planning and around development. And to the point where I think they had some very valid concerns about the complexity of the process, how time-consuming it may be, what kind of professional assistance they are or are not getting within our county, and and then comparing, if we do this at this county, we have a different outcome than with your own county, and it's somewhat timely sometimes. And so, I know we share the goal here to provide really great customer service to our partners and within our planning department, and we have a great team of management and leadership with our planning department. But I'm interested in maybe seeing and doing a review about our best practices. And do we have significant staffing issues? Have things changed since many people are now working from home? Did they come back to the office? One of the issues I brought up to the developer said, hey, they would bring their application, and it would be kind of a complex issue, but they would have stations, and they could come in, and may take an hour or two, and they go from station to station to station, and then it's done, and it's been handled. Now they often can't get a hold of anybody. There's not answering the phone, not getting back in a timely manner, and it seems like many people are working from home. And so just talking about maybe the culture around planning, how we can better serve our constituents, and I want us to be the most efficient, fastest, and best county in planning. You see in Portland that they've tried to figure out ways to streamline their complicated process. We've even had, throughout Oregon, I've talked about how to do that better and to remove some of that red tape. I'd like us to maybe review as a county to figure out where we're at and if we truly are delivering quick, good, efficient service that benefits the public and also the developers that we have to work with, and that we're definitely treating them as customers and having that mindset when we deal with them. And so that was it's come up a few times, but I don't know what the board feels about that, how we can make sure that we are providing oversight
It's in our strategic plan.
Yeah, how we can provide oversight a little bit more. Well, it is, but this is, I had specific developers come up to me. I don't know if some of these things could be done. There's low-hanging fruit where we could tackle it right now or relatively quickly. I don't know how to look at it, but that is a concern that came up this week that I wanted to bring forward.
And Gary has a comment.
Thank you so much, Commissioner West. This is in your strategic plan. You've already approved this. We'll go forward as quickly as possible. Again, you're hearing from people who are upset with the process. You don't hear from the thousands who appreciate the process. Of course, we're always looking for efficiencies, and we'll continue to do that. But please, you just approved a plan, and this is in your plan. We're doing it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, I'm gonna push back.
I know you will. Go ahead.
So if there are specific customer service needs with specific people right now that can be pinpointed and maybe part of this or directed and dealt with quicker, I hope that we have the ability to do that.
Always. We
Okay.
already do that. You notify me
Well-
when there's an issue, and I work on it and help.
Well, then I'll talk to you a little further offline, but there has been some,
If I can't fix it if I don't know about it.
okay.
Thank you.
We'll talk about those specific issues offline, but yeah, I appreciate you, Gary, thank you.
I think you have a comment, Commissioner
Yeah,
Salas?
I just want to just say that what I've done, when I first came on the commission, I heard a lot of that. And I will say that, since then, just because it was a long time ago, staff have done quite a good job, and I'm hearing from a lot of people that are saying they've seen improvements, chambers of commerce, developers and so forth, seen significant improvements, right? And the timetables in which to get a permit. And every now and again, I'll have a person, I can think of someone actually from Estacada here last year, who, or maybe 2 years ago at the most, who was having an issue with something. And what it had turned out to be, after tracing it all down, was the developer hired a contractor. The contractor did not submit all the materials, told everyone that they did, but they didn't. And so our staff never received all the materials, but led the customer, in this case the developer, to believe that they were doing everything in their power. And so someone had slipped, not going to mention any names, but it has probably nothing to do with the people that you're talking about. So I don't want to, again, I'm not associating that. I don't know who the people you are, but I have an idea maybe who they are. But I'm going to say that more often than not, it's someone that drops the ball that's outside the county, because you hire, and you have the property owner, you've got the developer, sometimes you got the architect, you got the engineers, and you got the contractor or all the other subs, and sometimes there's a lot of finger pointing. So all I'm saying is that I've usually to go to the director of DTD and say, hey, this is what I heard, tell me, get to the bottom, let me know what you find out. And usually these things bubble up into.
So did that, and there's examples, like there was issues with our turnaround times compared to our competitive counties around the sewer line inspection issue. That was really a burdensome and time can be money, especially if the construction was pushing out projects to a point to where it was really detrimental to those projects. And so, Gary, you got on that, you helped deal with it, we're working through it, we have more FTE now, and hopefully we're seeing those turnaround times shorten. But there's other specific issues that aren't just like one-offs, like I didn't do my application correctly, that are policy-driven, that can be compared to other counties that have different policies and have faster and better outcomes than we do. And there have been meetings with DTT, with Dan and DTD, and there has been meetings with staff, and so just trying to follow up on those, learn from those. I think, I am concerned if a number of the planning department is still working from home, that people feel like they're not getting a hold of somebody. These are different things that we're hearing in the community, and so they're different than one-offs. Like, I agree with you, that surely happens totally, and often that is the case where it's not a complete story, but there are more systemic, larger issues that I think we should always be striving to do better in those. And I don't know how long that process of the review takes, Gary, within our strategic plan, but there's also things coming up, I think, that we can take as low-hanging fruit and maybe tackle a little faster.
Thank you. I wanted to comment on that issue. Actually, had a constituent call, unfortunate, tragic situation where their son was paralyzed, and they were getting, whoops, I am sorry. Anyway, they were released, or going to be released from a facility, and their home hadn't been adjusted yet, and it was dependent on some permits and issues, and they were just at a loss, having to do with everything. And so I did just what Paul, contacted Dan. They had somebody follow up with the family, and it sounded like they resolved whatever the issue was. So I think we encourage people, if there is an issue, to call and give us a chance to kind of follow up on it and try and get a response. So I think it was beneficial in this situation. So I think it's important to have folks continue to come forward if there is
Just
a
keep
concern.
bring it forefront. It's a strategic plan. There's other things, just keep, it's an issue, it's a priority, just sharing it's and updating an issue that we've been talking about. So, very experienced people that do a lot of projects seem to have legitimate concerns and perspectives that I wouldn't hear unless they told me, so.
Well, thank you for bringing that forward. Anything else, Commissioner West?
No, that's it. That's my issue.
Commissioner Helm?
So that's interesting because I did have a sit down with Dan and others from DTD about the exact same issue based on some of the emails we were getting, and learned about the whole process and that it is very transparent. It's all online. You can go online and see where everything is in the process. One of the things that we're compared with is cities who have their own way of doing things, and because we are such a large county and we're dealing with unincorporated areas, it's a little bit different in how it's streamlined. So I brought up Bend because they streamlined their whole process about a year ago, and it is so much faster, and the developers are just loving it because it goes through, everybody goes into this category of what kind of development, here's who they get a hold of, this kind of development, and everything's been just so streamlined. But in our county, it's a little bit different for the unincorporated because we're dealing with septic issues, we're dealing with DEQ, we are understaffed within our septic department and stuff like that. So anyway, I did the same thing and sat down, learned a lot, but you're right, there's always room for improvement.
And septic
so.
was an issue that came up.
Yeah, definitely. No, it definitely is. And we are understaffed and they are working on getting more people for that. So they're real problems, but they can go online and see at any given point where it is in the process. So, which is pretty cool. I'll go back to C4. That was my first C4 retreat, Friday and Saturday. I did enjoy it. There was a lot of discussion. I really did love, Commissioner Schrader brought up that economic development portion of it, which should not be a small part of it. It's actually quite a big part of it because marrying, transportation and housing and economic development, they all tie in together. So again, that's one of my big topics that I'm going to keep pushing for the county. I attended the CCBA meeting, Clackamas County Business Alliance meeting, along with Commissioner Savas and Chair Roberts yesterday, with Senator Mark Meek speaking about the transportation package that failed and kind of the inner workings of what was happening in Salem. So we learned a lot about that. I'll be speaking at a CCBA luncheon tomorrow, and I'm sure that's going to come up. So I'm glad we got that. That'll all be fresh in my mind for the meeting tomorrow. So. Anyway, and everyone's welcome to come to the CCBA meeting tomorrow. It's me. I don't know what's going to happen, but I said there's probably going to be a few curveballs in there, but yeah, I'm hoping to answer as many questions as possible and just kind of give people a focus on what my role is here. So.
Fantastic. All right, thank you. Just a couple quick comments, follow up with my colleagues on the C4 retreat. It was great. Had a chance to network and talk to a lot of the different mayors and just city leaders. So that was a great opportunity to get together up at the mountain. And then we also, this week, had the mayor's meeting Zoom online. And that was really beneficial to really network with all the mayors, hear their concerns and issues. And I think we've identified a good time. It seems like about 4 o'clock, Zoom, and every other month or so we'll meet in person. And my colleagues are always welcome to join us at any of those. And also this past week had the Tri-County Commissioners meeting with Washington and Multnomah County Commissioners and really hearing some of their challenges and issues where they're at. Pierce funding is forefront on a number of issues, and I very much value the time to kind of hear what's going on regionally and things that we can do collectively. So very excited to talk about the Recovery Campus and update the Tri-County Commissioners, kind of where we're at moving forward on. It's very exciting, and a lot of accolades, Ben, on that. So, and then one last thing, I did receive a call from a senior in Malino, his name's Ken Stone, about, and this is kind of up Paul's special alley, is parking fees. And it was it's Wagon Wheel Park on Highway 213. There's a couple porta potties there and a gravel lot, and it's really unimproved. And his frustration was just for people having the ability to use that. And if it had additional upgrades, he could see it, was just kind of frustrated. It's a park that is often used. And I also talked to the mayor, and he said that actually people park along 213. It's used so much. So anyway, I've talked to Gary and talking to Dan a little bit about that. It's less than the other parks. I think it's $5 or something. Go ahead, Paul.
Who's our county park liaison? I'm not it. It used to be Commissioner Scholl. Who is our county park?
It wasn't on the list when we just appointed people either.
But Shoal was.
Shoal was
I
it,
did
yeah.
in the past.
Yeah.
It is not on your list. There is a advisory committee, a board advisory committee for county parks. Again, they don't need a board liaison, but any of you can go anytime you want.
Okay.
So anyway, I just wanted to bring that up as a concern, and we're talking about the unimproved parks. And I think that's just been a busy week, and looking forward to Thursday and getting through Thursday's agenda. So Gary, did you have anything else?
Not for issues.
All right, so if there's no other matters, this will conclude today's administrative issues and updates. We'll begin our first of 4 scheduled policy sessions today. Gary, would you please introduce the first?
Yes, your
session?
first 2 this morning are both related to the Recovery Campus, but we'll do them as 2 separate sessions. The first one is Recovery Campus regular update and schematic design update. Cindy Becker is the project coordinator in county administration, and Mary Rumbaugh is the director of Health, Housing, and Human Services. So this is just a general update on the existing campus, and then we'll have a second session on the future of the campus after the first session. So we'll do them separate, please. Go ahead, please, Mary and Cindy.
Good morning, Commissioners. Cindy Becker, County Administration.
Mary Rumbaugh, H3S Director.
So I wanted to let you know the architect is on his way here in case there are some questions when we talk about the campus. We're a little earlier than scheduled. Anyway, so at the beginning of this, I just want to go over the update. If you look at your packet, the items in yellow are things that are more recent and things that we're working on. And so I just want to go over this quickly. You've seen this before. The key areas that we're talking about are the property development and construction. The zoning application has been resubmitted. We're looking at a planning commission meeting at the end of September. Planning commission meets twice a month, and they're booked and timing and everything, so we're looking at that. And then the board, as you know, toured the Cherry Blossom program on 7/17. And then today we're doing the schematic review. In terms of funding, the governor's House Bill 2059 did pass. There's $65 million for residential treatment programs, and we are going to continue to try to meet with the governor's office and the Oregon Health Authority. The nice thing is that the governor is signing House Bill 2059 at the Cherry Blossom facility. So again, reinforces what we're doing and our need. We're also exploring some dollars that were given to the Oregon Housing and Community Services Department for shelter. The reason that we're exploring is their definition of shelter also includes transitional housing, so we're trying to see if there's any funding there as well. And we need, in terms of the future, we need to continue to discuss future opioid dollars as they come in, what percentage would go to the recovery center, what percentage would go to other services that H3S has prioritized. And then we are reaching out to the hospitals and corresponding foundations, particularly Providence Hospital, Kaiser Hospital, and the foundations for each of those. And the chair and Commissioner West have offered to meet with the CEOs or directors of those various foundations. So those emails, I think, just went out very recently, so we're hoping to get something set up in the next month. In terms of communication, we're continuing to meet with the Good Neighbor Group, the GNG as they're called. A few of the members did tour Cherry Blossoms, and they were pleasantly surprised at what they saw. And the other thing is we were in conversations with the Sheriff's Office about using the existing building for SWAT training before it gets demolished. And so the conditions of that are no lights and sirens, no blow up, no live bullets. And so I went out there with them, and they shot this, I don't know, it's like a plastic thing that shoots plastic things. Anyway, and so I went outside to see if I could hear it, and I couldn't. And so I checked with WeBuilt, and I also checked with the Good Neighbor Group about whether or not they were okay with us doing this. And so there was WeBuilt was fine, and some of the neighbors had a little concern. So we said we'll try it once and see what the reaction is and see if anybody can hear anything. And so they agreed to that. So we're following up with SWAT team to have that first training. And I did volunteer to be a kidnap victim if they needed it. So moving right along. And then we're continuing to meet with the Good Neighbor Group, and we are going to be developing a Good Neighbor Agreement. Really, that Fora Health needs to take the lead on that because the agreement will be between Fora Health and the neighbors. Again, we're looking at a year before construction starts, so we have a little time, but we're continuing to work on that. Are there any questions about the update?
Commissioner West.
There's been some conversation with President Peterson and myself, from President Peterson from Metro, about the access to, I believe it's some of the carryover administrative funds from Metro. I think it's like around 5% from SHS funding that they're distributing back out to the counties. And Metro, well, at least President Peterson was very optimistic that they could help us provide significant funding, and they're very excited about the recovery campus also. Has there been any thoughts around that Metro funding also? Do you think that that's a viable source of funding? What are your thoughts around that, how we looked into it as we kind of scrape all these dollars together?
Well, timing is everything, and we're meeting this afternoon. Mary and Shannon and I and Emily are going to meet this afternoon to talk about that, to talk about what the array of needs or commitments are. And then there's the other dollars with this planning committee that I think you talked to President Peterson about, and we haven't talked about that at all.
Okay. And then conversations with the governor's office, can have those started and can you speak to that process a little bit about how those funds will be distributed? 65 million, I mean, we're grateful for it, but it's not a lot across the state, right? So what is that earmarked towards? What are they prioritizing? How are we looking?
Unfortunately, we haven't been able to get with the governor's office since session because I think they're working on transportation. Yeah. So we haven't had a chance to have that conversation yet.
They're working on transportation.
And if I could just add, Commissioner West, in regards to the 65 million, there was really a shift to focusing and prioritizing building out secure residential for the aid and assist population to address the challenges at the Oregon State Hospital. But I do believe the two meetings that Cindy and PGA were able to have with the governor's office prior to the bill passing was still pretty promising around our investment. And I know we just had a conversation with the CEO of HealthShare, who they also had placed this project on their list for advocacy. And so they're more than happy to lean in and send a letter of support, just, reminding, really reminding, I hope, the governor's office that it's one thing to address sort of the top of the pyramid population, which is our aid and assist. It's another to then figure out how to spread these dollars to really create a continuum. So we actually don't have people going into those higher levels of care. So I think it's going to be a balancing act, but I'm still very hopeful that we'll see a portion. If we could get the 20 million, that would be amazing. But as you stated, 65 million across the state is not very much.
Okay. And then I guess my other question around funding and resources and also working with the federal government. The president signed an EO moving away from housing first policies that were really implemented like since 2013 and really focusing back also on treatment, mental health care, whatever. And so I think that it may not totally align, but our system that we've prioritized in Clackamas County does really prioritize treatment and recovery and those things. Housing is important. I'm not downplaying that at all. I know that's important to the county also. Do you see potential opportunity just because of kind of the realignment of the priorities of the federal government? Do you see the state maybe seeing, hey, we have an opportunity to show where we do have some common ground, where we are building out projects where there's common ground? Do we see any opportunities there to use this as an opportunity to move the ball down the forward and to be progress and have progress? Or do we have any kind of, or it's too new to, I don't know.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
too new, yeah.
Do we know if there's any federal money
I've
around
not
this kind of
heard
stuff?
about any federal
Since you
money.
signed an EOs or anything federal dollar-wise that we could be, well, let's look for it. So if we need it, but okay.
But if you hear of any, you just let us know.
I will, but if you hear of something too, you let us know. Yeah.
Commissioner Savas?
Yeah, appreciate the update, and I'm looking at page 6 of 17 of the packet, which shows really the plot, if you will. And there's one block there that says future development, 2.55 acres. I don't know if the reference that Commissioner West made with regard to that 5% holdover that Metro has at the SHS, if that could be either applied to this project, with building 1 and 2, or it could be, the housing element or what we do with this other future development part of the parcel section. But what I wanted to also plant the seed is that I think there's a lot of opportunity to look at neighboring properties that come on the market for property aggregation and look at what we can do in the future. So just keeping an eye on that, on the ball, or an eye on the area as to future opportunities. Yeah, that's the one right there.
Yeah.
So there's a street if you go down, well, you can't see the street, but to the south of the property we own is a strip of properties. It'd be great to, think about. And Chair Roberts and I, when I gave him the tour of that, we talked about future opportunities. So I think it's just a great opportunity, knowing that there's a lot of tired properties, if you will. I'll use the nice word tired, and a lot of opportunity to put more housing there and improve the area.
Thank you, Commissioner. We're going to be talking about this the second half of this session. And again, I just want to be clear that we have a long way to go to fund this project. And so I get a little bit apoplectic when I hear about buying other things when we haven't funded this project yet, just saying. So, but yes, we'll talk about that in the second part, absolutely.
All right. Yeah, I just had a couple questions, and might be a little out of order, but we visited Fora, and it was a great opportunity to ask a lot of questions, and one of the things that kind of arose, and we might be able to talk about that a little bit, just is that kind of concerns regarding withdrawal management and how they kind of had a line of people in the morning showing up. I did express some concerns about that in the neighborhood if you're having a whole line of people, and kind of wanted you to touch base on that. And then obviously we're going to have Medicaid-assisted treatment as well as part of the program, and my concern is a little bit about those people that are on withdrawal management of getting them into a bed. And it sounded like Ford wasn't able to put a lot of those people in, I think because of their capacity issues. And maybe you could just touch a little bit about that and how we kind of plan on handling that.
Yes, why don't we go through the slideshow, and we can touch on those as we go through them?
Sure, that's fine.
That'd be great. That'd be great. Can you put that up, Andrew? And Kevin Volk is here from Holst Architecture. He is like the principal on this project and all things design. So if there's something I can't answer, I'm going to shout out to him. Okay, do you have it up? Oh, I do it. Okay. It's not, oh, okay, thank you. All right, so the first thing I wanted to do, I'm sorry, is review the schedule with you. We've started schematic design, we have weekly meetings, and the way, what you have funded is the pre-construction design and development. And so there are really three phases of that pre-design development. You've got schematic design, which is really, I mean, it's a little bit more than the back of the napkin, but it's the first kind of go. And then there is the design, the actual design development, which further refines what we've done in schematics, and then the start of the construction documents that will eventually be used for permitting. So we're looking at about a year for those things to happen, and then we're looking at start of construction in summer of 2026, and that would be about a year. Ideally, if we can construct both buildings at the same time, that would be great. It would be more efficient. So that's what we're looking at this point. Next slide. This is the existing property, just to remind folks, obviously, you're familiar with it, but anyone who may be watching, and so there are some touch points here. The existing school, which will be demolished, and that's where the SWAT training would happen, by the way. And then the primary street address is on 92nd, that's a number 2. And then we have Tolbert, which is on the upper part of the screen. And then we have the St. Kevork Church on the right side of the property. And we're going to be looking at the trees that are on the property and saving as many as possible and planting others as well. But again, this is just to orient people in terms of the existing property. The next slide looks at the property and just in terms of where the footprint is and where things are positioned. As I've mentioned before, when we're doing the zoning, because the property is currently zoned as high-des residential and open space, when we do the rezoning, we have to keep some open space. And so what our application is proposing is about 1.3 acres of open space, which borders Tolbert and 92nd. We've already talked about this, by the way, with the Good Neighbor Group. We really want to have a joint conversation about what that space should look like, how can we interact with that, what's the cost of doing that and maintaining it, but that's really something for the neighbors to be involved in that open space. Whether we put a playground there or whatever it is, we'll be having that conversation with the neighbors. The way we've positioned the buildings, Building 1 on the bottom of your screen is the clinical building, and we'll talk about that in a little while, and Building 2 is where the outpatient and the transitional housing will be. And so the building area for number 1 is about 30,000 square feet. We're looking at 16 at the max. Detox withdrawal management beds and 24 residential treatment beds. And then in Building 2, about 20,000 square feet, and we're looking at 36 transitional housing beds. And then that's where the outpatient will be, and we're looking at about 250 people per quarter. A lot of those will be from the recovery campus, recovery center. And then we have on the left side of the map here is the 2.5 acres of future development. The next slide gives you a bird's eye view, again, of what we are looking towards. Building 1, again, withdrawal management and the residential treatment, and Building 2, outpatient and residential treatment. Actually, that's the housing. And then you'll see that there is space, kind of like when you saw cherry blossoms, there's courtyards around the building so that people can interact outside and inside the space. And then we'll show you where the withdrawal management is. To your point, Chair, there's never going to be enough beds. The key thing, and as Mary has pointed out numerous times, is really, and Devarshi is talked about, is flow through. What happens is if we can't flow people through the system, they get backed up into more expensive services than they need because they don't have another place to go. So the key to this is really being able to flow people through the system. They don't have to go 1, 2, 3, but if they went from withdrawal management to residential treatment to the transitional housing and then to permanent recovery housing, that's really what we're hoping for on a large scale. And then, so to the extent that we have people at the end of the pipeline, we have places at the end of the pipeline, we can move people through and then open up spaces at the beginning of the pipeline. The next slide. By the way, Holst Architects did design Cherry Blossoms, and so the great thing is not only did they design wonderful buildings, but they're also taking what they learned, and as Mary said, what they wish they could have done, now they're going to be able to do it in our buildings. So they're taking a lot of the lessons learned from their work at Cherry Blossoms, as beautiful as it is, and applying that to our project. And so the basis, again, the core principles for design, it's trauma-informed design, designing around comfort, safety, and safety is for not just the residents that live around there, but safety for the people who live there, and safety for the staff, and safety for families. So it really has that principle throughout. De-escalation, whether it's the design of the rooms, the colors of the rooms, so that people will feel the ability to de-escalate if they're having issues. Coherency throughout the project. Nature, there was a lot of discussion about we don't want this to be cinder block buildings just kind of stuck on a parking lot, but we really want to have that experience where people are able to interact with nature. And empowerment, so that people feel empowered to make choices. They're not just there to be told what to do, but they're empowered to make choices about their lives, about how they're living them, and just the things that they want in their lives. So those trauma-informed principles are throughout the project. If I'm talking too fast, let me know. Planned amenities, similar again to Cherry Blossom. There would be courtyards, there would be an art room, a fitness room. We're not sure if it's going to be basketball, half court. There would be space to play, whether it's basketball or pickleball or hopscotch, whatever. There'll be that space. There'll be family visiting space, group meeting rooms, outdoor patios, and garden beds. Okay. The next is inside Building 1, which again is the withdrawal management and residential treatment. You'll see on the block on the left side of the screen in the yellow, the light yellow is where withdrawal management rooms and services will be. We had very conversations, as a matter of fact, last week about people coming in and like in other places where they come in the morning and they kind of hang around outside until they can come in. We're going to develop a place where it's either covered or there's a space inside where people will be able to come inside. So that is a real issue that we're actually actively talking about as we speak. Then we have, again, the dining and kitchen. What we're going to do in the kitchen, as I mentioned last time, is the Cherry Blossom campus will provide the meals for our to-be-named project. It doesn't make sense. These facilities are about 15 minutes apart. It doesn't make sense to have full-blown kitchens in both of them. We will make sure in our site, that there is appropriate food on hand in case of emergencies. I mean, there's some rules about that, and so it's not going to be that there'll be no food. But in terms of the food for this building will come from Cherry Blossoms. In the other building, when we'll talk about that where the transitional housing is, people are going to be expected to make their own meals. So that is, again, part of the increasing independence and empowerment. But for this building, we are planning on having Cherry Blossom making that kitchen making the food, so we don't have to build out, and it's going to be a lot less expensive and more efficient to do it this way. And then we have the main entry for residential treatment. Again, this is a lesson learned from Cherry Blossom, where there's one entrance for everything. And so we're really having the separate entrances for individuals, so it's a little less hectic for them, less hectic for staff. And if somebody's in the wrong place, they will be shown to go to where they need to go. But it makes it just a little bit more settling for everyone to have these separate entrances. And then you'll see also on the level 1 in the clinical building where there's the management facility staff on the right side of that square in the light gray. And then the second level is where the residential treatment will be. Similar to Cherry Blossom, there'll be 2 people in a room. And then we'll have, again, the art room, group rooms. There'll be a lot of services right there for those individuals. And also the med management, the office space throughout both buildings on both floors. Now I will turn to Building 2, the floor plans. The purple is, again, where, can you see this? Is this big enough for everybody? I hope. Okay. And so on the first level of the building number 2, the orange is where the outpatient will be. And so you'll have outpatient group meeting rooms, individual rooms, multipurpose rooms, so that people will be able to enter there. We're looking at changing the the arrangement of the offices on level 1 because we may want to have some interaction with folks. The purple is the transitional housing, and we know that people in transitional housing are also going to benefit from outpatient treatment, so we want to make that an easy pathway back and forth to those. We'll also have, those will be key-carded doors, so not anybody can just enter the transitional housing area. And then on the second floor is where all the sleeping rooms will be. We're also reconfiguring that as well. So we're looking at, again, 2 to a room, similar to what you saw in, well, you didn't see the transitional housing part, but we're looking at 2 to a room here as well. And these plans are actively being worked on. We're switching things up, but this is, again, this is of the 3 stages, this is the first stage of the schematics. The next are the exterior renderings, and so on the left is the clinical services building. So we're looking at wood siding, well, you can read asphalt shingles, and then fiber cement siding. We're really looking at a mix of materials, so you don't have just one face for the whole building, but looking at how we can mix them in both buildings. And you'll see these are, we expect to have, this is 92nd Street, by the way, and we'll expect to have, obviously grass and plantings around all of that. Next is the front of the clinic services building. So those little striped areas there, that is the entryway to the residential treatment and to that first building here. And the pathway leads to the.
For a second, Commissioner West, did you want to ask your question? I'm sorry, we
We're
kind of.
past it.
I know, I
So I
apologize.
will get to, we'll go ahead and let her, because I'll
Okay.
rewind, but thank you.
Okay.
But yeah, of course, yeah.
Okay. And the pathway is the pathway to the second building. This is just, again, shows you what a courtyard would look like, and once it's fully blown. We just had a meeting last week with the landscape designers, and they've been proposing various types of grasses and trees and things that won't die. So that's a good thing. And then, again, these are just different renderings from different vantage points, so you can just get a sense of what the facilities and the surrounding area would look like. And here's an aerial view of the facilities. Again, this one is the clinical services building, and so that wing you see on the lower left was where withdrawal management would be.
Oh, that's
I think I'm doing that correctly. Is that right? Yeah, okay. And then next, you'll see where both buildings are. So you have on the right-hand side is the clinic services building, and the left is the transitional housing and outpatient services. Okay, my presentation is finished. Questions?
All right, I think Commissioner West had the first question.
Thank you. That was a great presentation. These renderings are very inspiring. I haven't seen, before getting prepared for this meeting, the renderings, and this is awesome. Thank you. Very happy day. I know that we're trying to be innovative, have some radical compassion, and figure out how to help this population with the dignity and respect that they deserve and need to recover. And I know we're trying to address leading causes, so poverty, mental health issues, substance abuse disorder, people's trauma. It's complicated, but we want to help people recover from those things. I guess my question is when I think of a campus, I think about like as many inclusive services as possible and as easy as possible, which you have spoke to, like how they can get to outpatient and whatnot. And we focus mostly right now in phase one, it sounds like, on transitional housing, outpatient services, and residential treatment. Those are huge gaps in our care continuum. I'm wondering, we are going to have, as we deal with this care, and board, you guys got this email a few months ago. This is the kind of framework that I put together about what a care continuum looks like. We do a lot of this already. Some of it's idealistic. Some of it's more of a kind of a thought experiment that I did. It's my whiteboard turned into a couple-page document. And it's not at all indicative of everything we do in Clackamas County or all the funding sources are diverse and whatnot, but I think it provides some framework as we look at this, like what does a care continuum look like? So I wanted to make sure you guys had a copy of this again. But when we look at this population, and we've talked about things like this population will need potentially legal services. This could be located on the campus. I've talked about pet care, right? Like a little kennel area that the residents take care of, but they have a place that they maintain that allows their furry loved ones, their fur babies, to also go through recovery with them. We're talking about education, job training, medical care. I don't know if we can have dental and vision anywhere on here, any kind of primary care attached close by within the system or here with these individuals. We still have some acreage there, but like thinking about this like larger campus idea and where people can get those life skills over the whole entire process. One of the questions I have also that I don't know how we do this or if this is the right location or if we can be creative, but an indoor area that is low barrier that allows people to shower, sleep, and get 3 meals a day with intensive services right there too, because they're part of that care continuum. I don't want to say shelter necessarily, but some level of like low barrier emergency intervention that have some accessibilities, including people with disabilities, and where they can get indoor sleeping, 3 meals a day, a cot, and then we're there and we're engaging more intensive, robust outreach to those individuals. That we don't turn people away for that as long as they're being, well-behaved and good neighborly. And it can be temporary, but it also feeds into the rest of the campus. So where are we looking at that? I know we have the stabilization center. It's a little small, but I'm trying to figure out that one piece and component we don't have. And I don't want to be like, we've also had issues with how shelters have been, I think, utilized in Multnomah County and Portland, but can you maybe speak to where we could incorporate something lower barrier?
So I just would say a couple of things. As I mentioned, the Oregon Health Community Services got a chunk of money this session to develop shelters.
Okay.
And so that may be an opportunity to have that conversation. The Caring Place has some of those services. At this point, we have not had that conversation about the campus. It makes me a little nervous right now to have that conversation while we're still trying to do this. That's something clearly Mary would have leadership around. I want to respond to the other services that you mentioned, though. Yes, yes, and yes. We are having a conversation actually with the health centers with Dr. Souvlaki. Dr. Suchaki, I don't want to say Souvlaki, Suchaki, and Sarah to talk about that there's not enough people on the campus to really put a full-time primary care center. So we're looking at how do we have doctors come to the campus? Do we transport people back for both medical and dental? So we're actively having that conversation.
Okay.
And then in terms of the others, yes, the life skills, support employment, all of those
Legal services,
will
all
be
in the
provided on
workforce.
there. We're going to actually talk to Dan and Mike about maybe we can have some people from the campus work at the dog services and then put their dogs there in exchange,
Okay,
for some of
okay.
that, because they're needing some help there, so maybe there's a win-win-win. So we're exploring all these areas. I put feelers out to people about how other people are handling dog services, so that is certainly,
Or relocate dog services to the campus.
yeah, there you go, into one of those places
Don't
we're
look at
going
me
to buy.
crazy, Gary. I see your side eye.
He hyperventilates silently. I hyperventilate aloud.
Yeah, exactly. We're joining.
Yeah. And so, I don't know if, Mary, you want to talk more about
Yeah,
that?
I mean, I think there's a balance. I think that this campus is an opportunity, but I also think that when we talk about a continuum of services, they don't all have to be in one place. So I think identifying what the barriers or gaps are, and then is that already in the works? And I will say, for housing and community development, some of the top priorities continue to be, we don't have full-time shelter. We obviously have our day shelter and then our weather shelters, and that's still a gap. Whether that would be on this campus, I really doubt it, but I think, again, we're not sort of putting all of our energy and resources just into this campus, because we have the work to do to create the continuum, including where the stabilization center
as-
plays a role.
One of the things that was, I'm sorry.
Oh, just, thank you. As I think about it, write about, ponder, give so much attention to this, I just feel, and we still are hoteling people at an expensive cost, and we made a public policy decision 2 years ago to continue down that pathway. I do, and I want to do it uniquely our way that fits within everything. I want to be super mindful about it. But I do feel like that low barrier piece is maybe missing. And I don't necessarily want to shy away from it, since everything's right there with that really acute population. And I don't know what that looks like. And I keep coming back to it, but I also get a little gun shy, because I see how the model's been a little different in Multnomah County. And it almost feels like an endless cycle of shelter circling, and what's next and how are we moving on through the care continuum is not happening, and then they've had some kind of not so great outcomes. So how do we learn from that? And then if it's holistic and it feeds right into something that's super healthy and there for individuals, and we could do it maybe in a nice, covered, thoughtful, intentional way, or do we have an idea or plan and that I don't know about or I haven't really considered? And will this move some of the people maybe from the Econo Lodge or elsewhere we can start to transition away from that type of utilization? Do you guys foresee that?
I mean, again, I think certainly there are folks who are currently sort of sheltered that will benefit from treatment at this campus, but I really do think we're almost talking a little bit about two different but similar populations. And so I think it will behoove us to continue the shelter conversation, which, we have some ideas, but we haven't formalized. So therefore it hasn't come to you all, but we do need to do something different. And again, I want to be a little cautious to not just assume the current folks who are temporarily housed are also the folks who need treatment, and
Right.
so it's not a one-to-one, so.
Right. And I guess when I kind of see the whole this is definitely has a strong substance abuse component to it, or behavioral health, right? But I also see individualized trauma, poverty, substance use disorder. Sometimes they intersect, sometimes in different ways. I mean, it's complicated, right? And there's different studies, whatever. But I'm trying to figure out how to you don't think that necessarily the population that's in the Econo Lodge whatnot is necessarily I'm trying to figure out how to consolidate, streamline, and figure out how to get something like that in Clackamas County when it has been traditionally super difficult. But you don't necessarily see that type of asset on this campus, or is it a maybe to you? I'm just kind of figuring out, can you?
We haven't even entertained it.
You haven't even
so.
entertained it, okay.
One of the things I think is that I did want to mention, one of the reasons we initially had outpatient services as part of the clinic building, and Fora Health recommended that we move it to the transitional housing building, primarily because you've got people intensely going through treatment, withdrawal and residential treatment. And if you've got people actively maybe using an outpatient services, it's not great to have them right there. So I think we want to pay attention to populations and what makes the most sense. The other thing I think that's really important that that Fora Health talked about at Cherry Blossom, they're only successful because they have an incredible network, that they really capitalize on the rest of the system to either fill in the gaps or to take folks. And so it really, this is not kind of a unicorn. It really needs to be part and integrated with the system. So yes, what you're saying is absolutely needed. Does it physically have to be here? Probably not, but it does need to be addressed. And so I think that's what we're trying to say, is let's not try to put everything here, because you're putting all these populations in the same place. You're not necessarily going to have great outcomes either. So we want to be innovative, but we also want to take into account lessons learned.
Commissioner, sorry, Commissioner Helm had a question. You
Oh,
already
last
finished?
one, and then I'll,
Sure.
yeah. So a lot of other, they're larger though, but there's like nobody's turned away type of thing. Families, kids, children, men, women. But what population are we trying to primarily, you think, target at this point? And we talked about that previously. Will there be any type of place where children, families can also receive care through this campus? Are we primarily looking at adult men and women? Like, what are we looking at?
It is for adult men and women, but there will be space and services for family therapy
Okay,
at this location.
okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Commissioner Helm?
Well, I think, number one, I think the Caring Place is going to take care of some of the things that you're talking about as far as like just a day place for showers, meals and stuff. I think that will.
I want an overnight, like low barrier shelter,
Yeah.
where I've seen
Yeah.
work in different models than what we've seen in Portland, but I want somewhere where it's like a feeder almost into the rest of the programming that you can be overnight temporarily, low
Right.
barrier.
Okay, and then two things then. Number one, Cindy, you said something earlier that for some reason spoke to me. You said, we'll never have enough beds. And in my dream world, we will have enough beds eventually, because I do see this problem as we're addressing it now, finally, that it will eventually taper off and be something that is not on the scale that it is today and manageable, and there will always be this population, but not to the degree it is today. So, yeah, in my dream world, right?
I like your dream.
I know. Well, I live in a dream world sometimes. And then based on our tour through Fora Health, will there be a children's area? Because theirs was in the lobby and it was extremely loud. And maybe putting that in a different location would be better, because as people come in, it is a pretty loud environment just based on the, hard surfaces, a lot of concrete and windows and stuff. So I don't know, I'm just hoping that maybe can be, love kids. We want them to be with their families and stuff, but just at the entrance, it was a little bit
Yeah,
noisy.
The entryway won't be the same as it is in Cherry Blossom, and so clearly that would be taken into account, absolutely.
And I see a head nod in the back there too. Thank you.
Anything else there?
No, that was it.
Commissioner Savas?
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of remind everyone, and I appreciate Commissioner West's idea of that other population, right, that distinct, unique population. And I know that we have a phase, 2 different work sessions really with the same thing. We're actually segueing into the other. But I just want to remind everyone that we made a commitment to the community nearby, right? And I want to make sure that we honor those promises and build something that not only has that neighborhood agreement and that something that is consistent with the community, but make sure we don't set up clashes, if you will. And I think Cindy kind of addressed it in one of her responses. It kind of gave me a little bit of comfort, just knowing that it might be unique, but there's also other opportunities elsewhere, which is why I kind of brought up if there's aggregation or there's other potential properties nearby that might be a block away, for example, that might be more suitable for different services. So I don't disagree, but I just want to remind everyone of the promise we made to the community that we would mesh in and we would be an asset and not a detriment. I know that Cindy was, actually, we all were, right? We all were in that building in the school on a hot summer night about a year ago almost.
And we did actually say, that was one of the questions that we put on our FAQ, is this going to be a shelter? And we said no.
And then just one last question, because this rendering is up. Will you show us the intake for the medical portion? Is that the top middle of the screen here, where the yellow portion of the building is?
Intake, the top, yeah, that's for the residential treatment, right? And then you've got withdrawal management at the lower part.
In the lower part
Um,
to the
Probably a
right?
different, one of the other
So this
renderings is
here
better.
would be.
Okay, there it is. Okay,
withdrawal
got it.
management, and
Okay.
then here's residential treatment. And this is the open space I was talking about, by the way.
And so you're talking about making an interior space for those people versus being out in the parking lot or on the street, yes?
Yes, either some kind of covering and/or interior space. We're having those conversations because everyone realizes it's not the best way to do it.
Exactly. Okay, good. Just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
I had just a couple comments, and along with Diana Hillman, agreement that hopefully we'll have the ability to kind of facilities. Hopefully Oregon is following the lead in creating more centers, that we're not the only one. I think that's a big concern I have, that we are unfortunately at the bottom of the country in a number of treatment centers. So this is really important and exciting. And this is where I'll probably give you a little bit of pushback, like Ben always does. I do have concern about not having our own food services. And I look at that at a couple of reasons. And I get it, the cost is going to go up. And I guess I relate kind of back to my experience, which is a little more on correction side, right? And that food services is a center hub, and it gives you the ability to expand. And what really can restrict you at times is food services. And if anything ever happened, I know we're getting it from the other location. And I can also say that food is a big thing in treatment, and good food, and all that kind of nourishment goes around, and not having kind of a full kitchen, I guess, is a little concern I have. I know you're trying to keep the cost down. I admire you for that. But maybe you could just talk about that a little bit. I guess that's out of everything, that's probably kind of one of my concerns, and also kind of that children's section. And we're going to talk about phase 2, and some of that stuff might go into phase 2, but maybe you could comment on that.
Yeah, we'll definitely have that conversation. So I don't cook, so, a kitchen to me is like not a big deal. But I certainly appreciate what you're saying, and I want to make sure that, and I want to go back, we meet every week, as I said, so we'll be meeting tomorrow, talk to the team about what is planned for that kitchen, what would be missing, and then we can talk about that, and what if we expand on the property, are we being short-sighted? So we'll have those conversations, absolutely.
Oh, okay. Okay. Great. Well, I think if we're okay, we might start talking about phase 2. Is there any other?
I just want to reiterate, I share your concerns around the kitchen and growth and expansion. And if we are going to end up ever needing a kitchen, now is probably the time to put it in. I have no idea the cost difference. I have no frame of reference, except I know that one of the nice things about the property as it exists now is that it does have a relatively nice commercial kitchen, but that's different. And I'm sure they're not easy to put in or replace and all of that, but I share your concerns, Chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, and as we experienced from Commissioner Schrader when she was meeting us, and there was an accident on 205, and she was held up for, it's not a
close.
15-minute drive.
Yeah.
It's not a 15-minute drive in the wintertime. It's not a 15-minute drive during rush hour. I don't know how you coordinate moving food between one building and another. I mean, I try the cost savings, but I agree that we need to look at a kitchen and.
We will absolutely
Yeah.
have that conversation. Thank you.
Great. All right.
Sorry, Martha. Use you as an example there.
Oh, no, it's a good example, and I guess from my perspective.
Can't
'cause
hear
I-
you, I'm sorry.
I think from my perspective, because I do cook, a lot of times there's a place to have the food prepared. It becomes a communal meeting place for people. It really, I think, would help with recovery. Taking meals together is a real big piece to me of what helps emotional and mental health. So that would.
There will be a dining room, there'll be a place to eat together. The
Okay,
question
there
is
will be,
where-
there'll be like
where
a
the-
place, whether
where
the food is actually prepared there or brought in,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes. But I'll take it back to Team Kevin Hurd, and so we'll have that conversation.
All right. right.
Probably increase the
Well,
cost.
thank you all, and this has been the informational update only, and we'll move on to the next policy session, which is they're kind of all connected. So Gary?
It's part 2, but we do separate videos. That's why we do this. Next is Recovery Campus Phase 2. Phase 2, to have some brainstorming discussion with you. Cindy and Mary are still here. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Commissioners. I have on the screen, hopefully, and again, it's what Commissioner Savas talked about earlier, was the property that's the unused or vacant. At the top of the screen is the open space that we're planning, about 1 acre. Again, the property itself is about 6.3 acres. We've got a little over 1 acre in open space, and then we have about 2.5 acres for the Phase 1, and then 2.5 acres for Phase 2 for future development. We have not done any planning on that. We know that it's there, and we know that you want to talk about it. And as I've said to you in prior meetings, there's no wrong answer. There's lots of opportunity here to do lots of different things. And one thing that I will say is that in chatting with Fora, they said it's not a good idea to have a youth facility there on the same campus. So that's the one thing that I would caution you against recommending. I also did a really quick survey of the task group that we meet with to ask them what they thought in terms of groups and housing. And again, this was just an informal survey. And they felt that young adults, and we're talking young adults 18 to 25, 30, would be a real need there, as well as people who are criminal justice involved, having a place for them, types of housing, again, a big need for transitional housing. And they talked about this pre-engagement, I think I just made up the word, but, and it's a little bit like the shelter. It's like people aren't ready to commit, but they're kind of on the way, and so that may or may not be there. And then also medical recovery. So people who are coming either out of a hospital or other place who it's not quote unquote just their substance use disorder, but they got medical issues, and how do we help those individuals? They're kind of caught between several worlds, and what's the best place to, is there a place for them to heal and to just live? So those are the types of things I heard from other folks.
All right. Commissioner West.
Thank you. I'm trying to remember in my head, being the property a number of times. It looks a little different on this drawing, but that property line there and to the left, are those the Emirate property? Is that the Emirate property?
Yes.
Okay. And then to the bottom of the screen, that's the number of distressed homes on the other side of the property line, right?
Some of them are distressed.
Yeah. So I will put this out there, maybe this is Phase 3. But maybe I can't help but notice the ability to help different populations as you can partition off parts of the campus from one another. And like that plot's large enough maybe to do something in Phase 3 for youth, right? Envision for that if possible. And, you could almost fence it off and partition it off, and it's separate from the rest. And so you could always have like the forward thinking on the campus for youth and families, or for mother and children, or somehow there. So I can't help but notice that. I love the medical respite idea. I've always talked about also incorporating some level of hospice care, even if it's just a few rooms. It's not uncommon for somebody to be released back on the streets and they just got done, maybe having untreated diabetes and they've lost their foot, right? Or that they have advanced congestive heart failure and they're always fluid overloaded, and so they're not able to maintain. They're more medically fragile, but they're also really like needing that safety net. But also maybe I'd love to see some type of innovation around hospice care, just from my experience as a nurse. It matters a lot to me that we try to have people not die alone and they have dignity, no matter who they are on the way out. We would all want that. So I don't know if we can incorporate a little bit of hospice, but I love the medical respite idea. It's super needed. And maybe that's a partnership we could look at with the hospital systems too.
And one of the questions would be if you want to look at this part of the campus as all housing, all different types of housing, and/or housing and treatment. And so that will the way that we are asking for the property to be zoned is commercial, which allows the broadest use of the property. And so, the property will all be zoned as one.
Okay.
So we'll be able to, we don't want to have to go back for more.
And we have transitional housing in Building 2, right? So would this be additional, can you speak to the difference in the transitional house? And then where, are we talking about aid and assist individuals and where they could be incorporated a little more specifically?
I would assume when the task group made that, that was one of the potential priority populations we would be talking about, or
Aid and assist. And then what was the additional piece of transit? Is it more like further down the care continuum and there may be peer-supported living with roommates and a more PSH type of facility? And they transition from, what does that housing piece look like?
That we know.
That's the question.
You don't know.
No,
We don't know.
right,
Well,
correct.
what do we, I guess we look at the care continuum, do we have that almost like dorm slash apartment peer support living type of community for people later in recovery? I think would be really interesting to have there and be a little bit more like, hey, I have 3 roommates, we take care of each other, we're all in recovery, and we're just more at that tail end of the.
Could be like the We Build community, if you look at the
Yeah,
structures.
it could be,
in the
yeah.
We Build. It's a very similar thing as what you're talking about,
Yes.
so that housing.
Yes, that is exactly what I'm talking about. That and the medical respite piece is really smart to me, yeah.
Yeah, oops, Savis, sorry.
Yeah, just want to just say, some of the opportunities that lie in this general area don't necessarily have to be contiguous, right? They can be nearby, and maybe that might be a benefit to have some separation that you would naturally want, right? Different populations, and again, having maybe the resources nearby would be obviously an advantage, right? You got one facility here, there's going to be I would just say management economies of scale, if you will, if we had different types of housing for different populations as well as hospice and all these other things, but they don't have to be contiguous, all on the same parcel.
Yeah, and if I might follow up on that point, I think that what I've seen is a lot of clean and sober living with a house manager, guidelines, rules, expectations. They have breathalyzers to test you. They don't.
Oxford houses.
Yes, and so I think hopefully the goal might be able to have some of those homes throughout the county where they close to where they live or work. Many of these people struggle with driving issues and transportation, so I think, to me, we might have some in that general area, but hopefully maybe look outside of that area to kind of meet those needs. A couple other comments I want to say that I saw really valuable is that the community college was a great transition for a lot of people when they get sober, they kind of want to reevaluate their life. A lot of times it's finishing their GED. And there is something about building a support basis at a facility and not having to go up to a new college. And a lot of people go right up to the transition center to continue to finish it because they feel comfortable there. So I could really look at, some sort of partnership with the community college, a space where they could do that. I also would encourage you to, people want to support, family wants to support somebody in recovery, right? And that they will come visit, but some of these people might be from out of town, so it could be a partnership with a local hotel. We have a special rate for families that are coming into town to help support them. They're probably not going to be able to stay at the campus, but develop some sort of partnership with the surrounding hotels, and maybe there's a way we could help support families that want to come visit. And I think that, and my last kind of comment is around kind of that 2 points, the mentally ill population and those that I think sometimes have higher needs, and kind of what your thoughts are for plans if we kind of move down there. I mean, the same kind of thing has also worked as having houses with a house manager for those kind of struggling. Were your thoughts about that population, how we might work to support those folks.
I mean, I think that's still very open, very much open for discussion, and, you know, we want to leverage some of the other commitments that are going to be happening around the 65 million that was just passed, and that's very focused on individuals, not only aid and assist, but the, you know, individuals struggling under civil commitment because of their mental illness. So really trying to complement actually what's getting built out as well. When I think about, Chair, you and I have had several conversations about youth residential, for example. Well, Parrot Creek is, you know, they're very close to a big expansion. So like, let's sort of see whether that is enough of a capacity or do we still have gaps? So I think that will continue to be, and the good news is we have time because our focus right now is phase one and getting the funding for that. But this is really, we do get to dream a little bit and at the same time be looking at what are some current investments that are happening, and from those investments, can we see where gaps continue, and do it is either this property or there are other properties to think about filling some of those gaps. You know, frankly, Commissioner West, I'm heartened to hear you talk about shelter, because the previous board didn't necessarily have an appetite for that. And so I think this is, it's a welcome conversation. And again, it's really part of the continuum. And I see my role very much being able to sort of have enough of a 30,000-foot level to be able to see what's happening in other parts of this county with other investments, and to be able to come back to this board and say, yep, this continues to be a gap, and is there appetite for us to lift something up for that?
Yeah, thank you. Commissioner Savas.
Yeah, just build on really the conversation we're having right now, and I really appreciate actually that way we're talking about this. And but I think it's a big win, because 2016, I was trying to get my colleagues' eyes on this property and the opportunity. And at that time, it was a shelter focus, as Mary's kind of speaking to. But as we know, the opportunities to do something where the stars come into alignment, it's not just about the land and the dirt. It's not just about the building. It's also about finding the money to operate it, maintain it, and all that. So all those things have to marry together. And the fact that we're talking about it tells our staff, and communicates to our staff that, hey, we see all these things, and when they see an opportunity, whether it's a grant or a program come from the state, that hopefully we can marry them. But it takes all those funds to come together. But most importantly, I want to just draw attention to, how do we operate it? How do we maintain it? How do we pay the staff to be, to whatever that might be, of all the different things we touched on? And the mental health is one that you and I spoke to on Monday, or you and I spoke about on Monday. How do we overcome that barrier of not having adequate funding for behavioral health and learning disability? Those are learning impaired and so forth. So it's a huge challenge.
Great. All right, any other comments? Yeah, Ben's thinking.
I think I'm okay. I'm excited to have conversations with the different hospital systems. Maybe they want to do the medical respite and we help build it, and they say we can take that on in our portfolio, and that we don't have, OHSU does not have a presence really in Clackamas County yet. I'd love to get in front of OHSU or even our partners in Providence. I know that everybody's feeling the pinch right now, even our hospital systems are feeling that, but I think if they have a good partner within a county and a public partner, that public-private partnership, Martha, that you always talk about, there is a way maybe to say, hey, we see this gap in healthcare. You guys build it, yeah, let us run it. And I think that you can have multiple service providers on a campus, right?
Absolutely.
That work well together. And so I think New Haven for Hope has like 78 different entities on their one campus, all doing great work together. They have 22 acres, so they have a south campus, a north campus, so they had it all, yeah. But I'm excited to, as we think about that, even we do have an aid and assist issue, and we can build something specific to that population. I think that phase 2 might happen faster if that's where the need of the state is. And we're like, hey, we do see aid and we need this too, and that's the state's priority. And then we talk to the governor's office, but we are completely open to being creative with aid and assist over here too. And we can build that out and start phase 2 relatively quickly maybe. So that's exciting. So that's where my thoughts are. Thank you.
And there may be an opportunity, right now, whenever I talk to these people, the first thing I ask is if they have any money. And so if there's an opportunity to have a conversation with them just about, hey, let's just talk about this. And maybe we bring some foundation people in, and the hospitals and us, and just have a brainstorming creative and get them buying into the process without saying, you have to come up with this money. They may be more engaged, because right now they're probably tired of hearing from me about money. So if we could just have that conversation, I think that would help inform what some of those opportunities might be. If you want us to put something together in the future, and maybe this fall, we could bring some people together.
Great. Commissioner Schrader?
Yeah, I just want to mention that when we went to Sea Haven for Hope in, when we were in Texas, Ben and I, one of the reasons they were able to do such a large development was because they had absolutely a tremendous amount of private sector support of philanthropists in the city. Of course, it's a large city. We don't have that here necessarily in our county. But a lot of those civic leaders in the private sector stepped up to the plate and gave millions of dollars. I don't know the exact amount, but it was that was one of their processes, was to identify those big donors and put their name on a wall, and make it happen. And I know that hospital systems do that pretty often. I know that Providence does that, so there might be an opportunity there if we can find some big donors. But I don't know if
Just
there are
give us
any on
their
my
names.
list. I'll have to. I'll get my list.
All right. One last comment, and then we'll go ahead and move on. But I agree with you on the concept of not having juveniles at that location. I think that, and I disagree a little bit, just because I think there's a good reason why there should be a separation from adults and maybe those that have a longer history and are youth. So I would just encourage you that as we look at Parrot Creek, we look at the Recovery High School, that we really kind of dive into some of the data to look at what the needs are. And we did visit 4D, and I just think there's not many recovery opportunities for youth.
Right.
And just want to keep that on the radar, even though it might not be at this location. I think we should be constantly
Absolutely.
kind of having that conversation. How could we support or look at another location? So I think before we kind of move on, I guess I want to know from you, do you need anything else from the board? Do you feel like this discussion has been helpful, Gary?
This is just an informational update. We've heard plenty of feedback from you, which we thank you for that. We'll come back to you again in the near future to keep talking about Phase 2, but we're really focusing on Phase 1 right now.
All right.
Nothing further needed from you today.
With that being said, this concludes our business morning meeting. Thank you for joining us. We'll reconvene this afternoon at 1:30 to continue the scheduled policy session, and until then, we're adjourned. Thank you. Well, good afternoon now, and welcome back, everyone, to this afternoon's session, July 29th, 2025. County Administrator Gary Schmidt, would you please introduce the next policy session?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Next session is 2025 State Legislative Session Summary. The team from Public and Government Affairs will present. Tony Holowetsky, Director of Public and Government Affairs, and Trent Wilson, Government Affairs Manager. Go ahead, please.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Tonya Holowetsky, Director of Public and Government Affairs, and with me, Trent Wilson, Government Affairs Manager. Joining us today in the audience are also Jamie Lorenzini and Donna Hockey. They are also members of our Government Affairs team and wanted to be present during our presentation. So today we are pleased to present our formal summary from the 2025 state legislative session. It is an informational update, so no decisions are needed today. The report that we provided to you in your packet is comprehensive, so we will provide a high-level overview of the session and our advocacy efforts to make sure we leave time for discussion or your questions within our allotted time. So in 2025, legislators introduced 3,466 bills, the most ever. Of those more than 3,000 bills, more than those 3,000 bills, PGA determined that 2,300 could potentially impact county business. So while we tracked those 2,300 bills, we focused most of our attention on 68 high-priority bills. So when you look at the report's executive summary, which is this table that is in the report, you will see the list of the county's highest priority bills and also our success rate of about 70% in delivering on those efforts due to our advocacy. So in the interest of time, I will highlight two of the county's priorities. The first, efforts to secure funding for the Recovery Campus, and the second, ensuring that the county's priorities were reflected in the transportation package. So first to the Recovery Campus, as we know, is one of our county's top initiatives, and especially to find funding for it. And while the county was not named in any specific bill during the legislative session, we did partner with the governor's office to ensure adequate and flexible funding in House Bill 2059, which will provide more than $65 million to add substance use treatment capacity in Oregon. We also are continuing to work with the governor's office and Oregon Health Authority on the next steps for accessing this funding, and have a high degree of confidence that Clackamas County will receive some of that funding for the Recovery Campus, and we'll keep you posted as we learn more. As I move on to the transportation package, another top initiative for the county, which did not pass, as we all know, this session. We provided you with many updates, and much of what happened has been in the news, so we won't review that again. But PGA did help the BCC advocate on our specific transportation agenda in several ways that were included in HB 2025 in the end. And these included the non-tolled revenue for I-205, advancing the full I-205 project, preserving local funding that is directed to the county, and including language in the bill to continue transit funding discussions related to the flow of transit money and identifying service needs in and around the region. We also worked with Senator Nguyen's office to introduce a funding bill for the Sunrise project, which unfortunately did not get a hearing. What we did see in Salem this year was a major shift, and that is in the flattening or even a decline in revenue at the state level. Unlike previous years where the state was receiving increased revenue and able to fund initiatives, this year we saw cuts to major programs such as housing, public health, and even public safety. We anticipate this trend to continue until job and population growth return in meaningful ways to Oregon. So before I hand it off to Trent to share what we're hearing about the upcoming special session and our efforts to leading toward the 2026 short session, I wanted to thank you, the BCC, Administrator Schmidt, and the policy advisors for approving our agendas, sometimes on a very short turnaround time. Approving the agenda, the state agenda, but also your guidance during the session and the many trips to Salem that you took to advocate on key bills. We also want to thank the many staff throughout the county who reviewed the bills. The Government Affairs team relies on the subject matter expertise of our county staff during the session to know what is important and what merits our attention. And we want a big thank you to the departments who work with us on that. We also want to thank our contract team, Northwest Public Affairs, who supports our agenda in Salem. And finally, I want to thank Trent, who spent the last 6 months in Salem with our legislative partners. And I want to thank Jamie and Donna behind me, who managed the work in the office. This is a new team. It's a highly effective team and has demonstrated exceptional acumen, agility, and professionalism. So with that, I am going to stop, and I'm going to pass it on to Trent to fill you in on the next issues.
Thank you, Tona, and hello, commissioners. I want to extend my same thanks to that group of people that Tonya just mentioned, but also we're not able to do that good work without the support from our good director here, so I want to say thank you to Tonya as well. The special session you've heard for the transportation package will be specifically about the transportation funding needs that is coming out of the governor's office. You're seeing it in the news. Right now, that's scheduled to be on August 29, but news is coming out this weekend that because of scheduling and logistics, it could actually take place throughout that entire weekend, maybe even extending into the Monday of Labor Day, September 1. That's, I think, from what we're hearing, related to just getting everybody in the building and also the logistics of having a Capitol building that is under construction. So there's going to be little musical chairs, and we've seen that in a few press releases by other legislators. So something to watch, but again, that will focus specifically on transportation. And then looking ahead at 2026, the short session will begin on February 2. There's plenty of time between now and then to work with you and work with our departments on what sort of agenda and what sort of policies or funding mechanisms we need to pursue in 2026 and be responsive to what just happened here in 25 and what the board's priorities are, which I know you just had that agenda setting conversation. So we're looking forward to wrapping those together and working with you to get ready for 2026. And so with that, that's our presentation, and we're really here for questions.
Questions? Anything? I see smiles.
I'll go first.
All right. Well, first of all, I do want to say thank you to all the staff for your hard work. And Trent, I can't tell you how many times I was down there and you're running from place to place and helping get us to the places we needed to be. And so just want to say thank you. And I know that we didn't necessarily get some of the funding we had hoped, but we did have a lot of support for many important issues. So I think that's positive. So we'll keep watching and see what happens. But as always, I mean, if there's anything any of the myself or my colleagues can help in the next session, please reach out to us. So with that, did you have something, Ben? Oh, I'm sorry, I missed your light.
That's okay. In your package, it talked about $90 million to the governor's office, and then I'm hearing $65 million. Can you speak to that?
Yes, the $90 million for House Bill 2059 was the initial introduced bill. It was calling for a $90 million investment to treatment beds and treatment facilities across the state. By the end of session, that was amended down to $65 million. It was part of the broader trend we saw in reducing the size of packages and objectives, funding objectives set by the governor before the revenue forecast came out. So $65 million is what eventually passed by the end of session.
Okay. And then I have a question on the transportation package and what may be moving forward. I know that's a little unclear, so it's and foggy, which is to be expected. There's a lot of reports in the media right now that not just ODOT has a funding cliff that it's facing, but we're also hearing a lot about TriMet right now, and another large agency that's having some financial struggles. I'm not clear whether those are all external or it's some issues with internally with management of public funds or a combination of both. I don't know. But I am curious about its impact, you think, on policy moving forward or what you're seeing, because now we have two major agencies and then we're going into session for more funding. I know ridership's down. I know that revenue's down. I know that it's had some different issues. I don't know if you can speak to kind of what we're seeing with TriMet alongside ODOT.
Yes, last week TriMet released a press release, I think is what it's called, identified budget reductions that they're anticipating over the next biennium, state biennium, related to the state not passing this transportation package. And TriMet was very clear during session about how much money they needed by a certain date. I think it was 2031, 2032, or they would start to see or be prepared for pretty significant service reductions by that time. And so House Bill 2025 anticipated and staggered cost adjustments and increases between now and 2030, 2031, something like that, to help address those needs. But what the broader conversation was in Salem, and I think it's easy up here in Clackamas County and the region to see the news about TriMet. I think that Rogue Valley was seeing similar funding pressures as well. Chariot, Sound and Salem was seeing similar funding pressures as well. And so, I mean, those are, I would say, are the three, and Lane County too. So those are the four larger transit agencies seeing that budget struggle. transit is, as y'all know, it's a social service. It's not a money generating, business model across the globe, but it's there for people who need it. And so I think that is the broader conversation and the balance of like, where do those investments come from? How are they paid for? Where is the social need and I think social will to fund those programs and keep them floating?
So Trent, just like the direct impact, also some of the cuts they're talking about is to the line to Clackamas County, the light rail line, and it's a significant cut on, I think is that the green line? I think it's the green line, and we're talking really significant cuts, and it represents an 18% reduction in max services. It's their largest in history, and that's directly already to a desert and an underserved area that's already had to do without for a long time in Clackamas County, and we have not had our fair share in transit or public dollars, period. I know that we've heard this a lot, so it concerns me now as we're looking at that looming issue with the transportation. When we have these TriMet comes out with one of the biggest cuts they're going to do in their history is directly impacting Clackamas. And I don't know like what our plan is around that.
That is a great question, I think, for our transportation professionals, right?
Okay.
Who track that at a more like engineering and people movement sort of level, whereas PGA is gonna be more on the policy side of things. But yes, I mean, the communication has been that when reductions start to happen, typically in the transit world, they go towards your lower performing lines. And when you think about TriMet at large, right, a lot of their density and a lot of their use is focused around where the jobs are and where density is. And of the three counties, that's typically not gonna be Clackamas County. So I do think that there are some conversations about how can we improve transit, how can we improve ridership that are worth the board talking about with TriMet and keeping them close and keeping those service lines alive and well, I think is really important for Clackamas County.
And this is my last comment or question. Is it correct to say that that last stop effort made at the end of the long session didn't make it over the finish line? One of the main concerns is that there was not a revenue sharing to the local governments, the 50-30-20 split. And are we looking at that now being preserved moving forward? Are you confident that that message was heard?
That message was heard. Yep, very, very confident that message was received. Yeah, and it was very clear throughout session that transportation operates as a system, right? And that 50-30-20 is a critical part of making sure that that system is seamless for the driver. The driver doesn't know if you're on ODOT's road or county road, city of whatever's road.
Totally.
We don't know.
Yeah.
But it has to work no matter what road you're on. And so Clackamas County, we're in a decent position if you talk to our transportation department on funding right now, but other local governments are not. And so to just focus on only ODOT's needs and not other local jurisdiction needs, that was a big gap in that last ditch effort there. And you saw the Association of Oregon Counties and the League of Cities show up and say, this has to be a system solution.
Thank you for answering my questions. Thank you.
Commissioner Savas.
Yeah, I'm start with ODOT and I'll transition to TriMet. So not this spring, but spring before last, ODOT puts out a forecast, a number of forecasts. One of them was gasoline sales, fuel sales, which obviously gas tax associated with that's one of their main revenue streams. And it looked, like it was kind of flattening out, right? It's, going to tread along. And then in fall of last year, I believe, we saw the next forecast, which showed gasoline sales taking a sudden drop. I mean, a sharp drop, not flat, a sharp drop. And I asked one of the economists or financial guys at ODOT, what's behind that? I don't get that. If you're basing your financial status or your ability to, require funds to maintain everything in these projects, and you're using a number, let's just say it's not real for sake of argument, then it's going to look a lot more dire than it is going to be looking optimistic, right? And I have not had anyone, I didn't get a clear answer for that, by the way, and that person said that I should probably talk to someone else above him about why that is. And I don't foresee, no one's telling me, people in the industry foresee that there actually is going to be this sharp drop, which starts actually now. If you actually look at the trends, the downtrend would, by the forecast, showed it would be dropping and it precipitously falling next year as well. But no one sees a reason for that. No one actually sees that actually as an actual. So I just want to let you all know that I was hoping that, some of our transportation leaders on the state side, whether that be in the House or the Senate or the OTC or the governor's office, would, use a sharp pencil and figure out if is that real and get us a better understanding of what the real financial issue or status is. Never did get that. But I think they, ODOT did a great job, I think, of trying to get the message out that they needed all this funding or else, right? And so we're seeing the or else right now, and the governor is obviously working hard to get that legislative session, as Trent mentioned, before us. It's kind of a bare bones funding thing. But I think at the end of the day, I still have this question mark: what is the real financial forecast for ODOT gasoline sales or whatever? What are all the assumptions that went into the forecast, right? Not dissimilar to our conversation about forecasts and assumptions. So a couple months ago or less, TriMet, well, actually, I'm going to back up. So that's ODOT. So back on Transit Day, which was what, about 3 months ago, 2 months ago, Trent? Transit Day.
Yeah,
I
middle of
sat
session.
I got in Salem into the Chariots building for the OTA, the Oregon Transit Association. I sat in the back of the room. I got there a little bit late because I had conflicts here, meetings here. And all of a sudden, at least for me anyhow, all of a sudden I'm hearing that, oh my gosh, Transit's got this huge funding crisis and they need all these monies. And that was being assembled, as well as the packets for a number of transit advocates to go to see all 90 of the state legislative offices, go into all the offices on that day. And, it was Transit Day. They were going to swamp the state legislature on Transit Day. So following that, I was trying to figure out, well, what's behind that? I mean, because Trent and I, late last year, when we were negotiating or trying to negotiate with TriMet, we were hearing that, geez, if we can support, this incremental increase of STIF funding, we would see more service. So we ought to be advocating together for more service as a result of more STIF funds. It was not about a funding crisis at all. It was about our future to build more. And they win, we all win together, and we'll be able to add more service. So it came as me as quite the surprise that on Transit Day, months later, now they have this funding crisis. So, they put out their own press release in their own words. The media picked it up and, put out some numbers. And that was 2 months ago. And then they had another media release last week. And if you actually compare those and what they say would happen, that doesn't really quite line up exactly. I thought that it was, looking more and more severe, or that was the message that was trying to be conveyed. It was more severe. But about 4 weeks ago, I met with, TriMet leadership offered to give me a financial look at, to meet with their financial staff. And it took about a month to get that together. So 3 weeks ago, I sat with their staff in a Zoom meeting, and we went over some of the numbers. And what I saw, I was like saying, well, it appeared to me that there are some unrealistic things that are baked in their assumptions. For example, keeping a high level of private security at the current status level. Like, it's not going to get any better. They're going to keep this going in perpetuity, by the way, in perpetuity. As well as zero to no fares, or very small amount of fares, and and I go, well, that's not realistic for a bottom line either, and that's going on in perpetuity. As well as a lot of unforeseen, or I guess, or I won't say they're not urgent, but capital expenditures that had to be funded. So it still makes me wonder whether or not, well, geez, if you're having this funding crisis, why would you do these capital projects that maybe you really don't need right now, right? Is there a justification for it? It seems like, when you have less funds, you should responsibly spend less money. That's just, I think, how all of us do our home budgets or do our budgets. But I left that meeting, that meeting with their finance people saying, geez, if I was to crunch the numbers differently, I would be prioritizing, service and so on. But anyhow, not realistic. I won't belabor it much more other than to say that I think we need to realize that the cuts that they're talking about are not only were they unexpected, but are probably going to be realized more in the south part of their service area where we are than they are probably anywhere else. And the governor seems to have a lot of passion and focus on the Portland area. So I would suspect that while we are paying and we're paying out of our paychecks, and we're also, the employers are paying through payroll more and more, and we're seeming to be getting less and less, and not the more that we were seeming how expected. So I just think the timing and the sequence and the messaging is not consistent. And I raise that, my radar's up. I'm going to call it a red flag, because for me, it's a red flag that it's not consistent, that we ought to be more deeply involved. And I did challenge some of those numbers, but nonetheless, don't have a clear answer. But Trent, I do have a question for you, and you mentioned the revenue forecast, and I'm really wondering the state revenue as it relates to payroll, because that's the main funding stream for the state legislature, not but the most. What does that really look like? We're hearing that a number of employers are either laying off people or they're shutting down entirely, closing businesses. And that's more so in Portland, not exclusively, but Hillsborough as well. What do you think the forecast shows? Because we rely on a lot of that funding for a lot of programs throughout the state, whether it's education or mental health, everything that we do. Just want to get your sense of what you feel the forecast we should be ready for. Should we expect less and less and less, or more and more and more?
I'm not an economist. I don't play one on TV. I'm your government affairs manager. I'm a policy generalist at large. My understanding from what we've heard from the legislature and the state economist is that a slowdown in growth in Oregon is a contributing factor. That's a dominant reason why you see the governor wanting to push for more housing, more people to come. In the 2000 teens, right, Oregon saw a really high level of growth. We were growing really fast and outpacing, I think, some of those components there and bringing people into Oregon who were adding to the income into the state's government. And that included jobs, and it didn't just include any kind of jobs, it included high-paying jobs. And that's why there was an effort, right, a couple years ago to try to bring in like chips manufacturing and bring in more high-paying jobs in fields that are, traded sector type of employment. So when you see growth in those types of industries, when you see growth in people coming into the state and adding to that very unique and singular funding resource, Oregon's not like other states that have sales tax that pay into other state coffers. We have this unique individual income tax for the state. So it is heavily reliant on growth and jobs and job growth and wage increases. And so if that's going to begin to flatten or stagnate, that will be a problem for Oregon. So yes, what I'm hearing is that has started to slow down, and it takes a long time to get that to boost back up.
Okay. Thank you, Trent. Thanks for all your work this year. Saturday, you heard us talk about the Clackamas Caucus and maybe ideally working closer with C4, in the future. Can you give me a sense, because it seems like we were the BCC or all of us, perhaps, I felt more disconnected from the Clackamas Caucus this year than years past. Can you give us your thoughts on that?
We ended up not having a legislative breakfast this year. And I'm struggling to remember why. That was 7 months ago, and it was scheduling. That's what it was. Yeah, y'all are busy people, and they're busy people. So we had a hard time finding a time that matched up, aligned with when y'all could meet as a new board to approve the agenda, and then session started just a couple days after that. Thanks for triggering my memory there. So hard to get everybody in the room, and then a record number of bills and committee assignments came online. So the Clackamas Caucus themselves only met twice during session, not even to be, engaged or not engaged with us, but certainly more efforts now that we are a complete board, now that we have a strategic plan that I believe y'all approved last week, a lot more good reasons to put everybody in the room together and have those additional conversations. So there was, even during session, a degree of scheduling challenges amongst themselves to get everybody in the room. As many of them, and this is a good thing, many of our delegation members started to pick up leadership positions in the session within their parties, and so being put into more gavel scenarios, they were just busier. And we even heard Senator Meek yesterday saying that on Mondays and Tuesdays he was in the building and in a committee between 7 o'clock a.m. and 7 o'clock p.m. And we started to see a lot more of that on the Monday to Thursday sort of category for legislative calendars, and then Fridays are complicated for everybody.
All right. Well, thank you very much for.
Chair, just want to have one other follow here, if I could. We have an hour. I mean, we're ahead of schedule anyhow, but the LOC did a great job, and I think we understand the LOC structure and voting is similar to the AOC, and I think they've done a great job. What I've learned is the OTA, on the other hand, has a different structure where it's not, every member has a vote. They're weighted by their population or the dollars they serve or something that matters. So there's 4 agencies that of the OTA, for example, that have a sizable share of the votes. So, what we heard Transit Day and thereafter was, we don't have that same funding problem, right? Or that same point of view. So I would like to look into that a little bit more and see if that's actually true, if that is weighted. But because if they are a powerful lobbying group and they are or they are not representing all the transit agencies, then that's one thing. If they are only, truly representing maybe how that voting structure works, that weighted voting structure works, that might be something that I think we ought to be mindful of. But I'll leave it there.
Happy to ask, and I'll get back to you.
All right. Thanks again for keeping us informed, and this is information only, so we'll move on. And Gary, what's on the next policy session?
Thank you. The next session is surplus property update. Dan Johnson, Director of Transportation and Development, will present.
Good morning, Chair Roberts, Commissioners. Dan Johnson, Director of Department of Transportation Development, including planning. We'll talk later. It's going to be a great discussion. Hey, we are here with a different hat on. We run the property disposition program out of DTD. And essentially, the goal of the property disposition program is to get those properties that have been foreclosed on by the Clackamas County back on the tax rolls. Since the community may be watching, just to make sure we're clear, that foreclosure process starts in assessment and taxation, can take up to 6 years, so it's not a rush to foreclosure, making sure we're clear about that. But there is a process they go through, and they are transferred to property disposition with the intent to get them back on the tax rolls as quickly as possible. They do that through a couple of different options, one of which is to sell them at auction. The second of which is to possibly sell them back to the original property owner, okay? And so essentially we are here today in front of the Board of County Commissioners to ask you for authority on 2 different areas. The first is to allow us to declare the properties within your packet as surplus. Let's talk about those properties for just a second. There's about 54 of them approximately. These are not a number, like 54 high-valued properties that are out there. They take a variety of different forms. Some may be buildable, some may not. Some may be landlocked. Some may have environmental overlays over them that limit their ability to be developed. Some are slivers or remainders that are there. There are a variety, or the story behind every property is there and how it came into our possession. But essentially, the list is being scrolled through now and is in your packet of materials. We're asking the board's authorization to bring forward to the business meeting a declaration from Clackamas County that these are surplus properties. That would allow us then to, one, most importantly, advance them to auction or future auction, okay? Secondly, we are also looking for you to grant authority to property disposition to allow former owners or other eligible entities to reacquire these properties. So essentially, as there is a past owner and there's a request to buy it back, this would allow us the ability to negotiate with them and advance a transaction with them to return those properties to the original ownership. There's a lot of history about this in the Supreme Court case that we've talked to you about previously. I don't want to muddy the water. I want to keep this as simple as possible today. It's simply the declaration that these are surplus and the authority to sell back to prior property owners or other representatives. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Questions? Commissioner Helm.
So the 6 years that takes place between the start to possible finish, that is, the intent is to try to get them to pay during that time? Okay, so then at the end of that, you do foreclose, and if we're offering it back to them, do they get 6 years of free taxes, or we're selling it back to them, including the taxes that were owed during that 6-year period?
So the 6-year process it starts in assessment and taxation. We're not the foreclosing entity.
Right.
A&T is. But essentially, the sale back would be a combination of a variety of factors. It would be the taxes owed on it, okay?
Okay, it does
And-
include
yeah,
taxes.
correct. And then it would be kind of our holding costs that associated with it. And that would be, that combination of costs would be the totality of the numbers that would equate to the sell back number.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, as I understand from the materials, we need to make two decisions. And would a commissioner please make a motion on the first decision, which is regarding the foreclosed properties?
Chair, I move we direct staff to submit the attached list of tax foreclosed parcels for declaration as surplus property at a future business meeting.
Commissioner Helm has moved to direct staff to submit the attached list of tax foreclosed parcels for declaration as surplus property at a future business meeting, and Commissioner Schrader has seconded that. Any further discussion? Seeing none, clerk, would you please call the poll?
Commissioner West.
Aye.
Commissioner Savis.
Aye.
Commissioner Helm.
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader.
Aye.
Mr. Chair.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And then, Commissioners, we need a motion on the second decision, which is regarding the property disposition authorization, as I understand it.
I move we grant authority to property disposition to allow former owners or other eligible claimants to repurchase tax foreclosed properties if they request to do so prior to the property being offered for sale.
And do I have a second?
I'll second.
Commissioner Helm has moved to grant authority to property disposition to allow former owners or other eligible claimants to repurchase tax foreclosed properties if they request to do so prior to the property being offered up for sale. And Commissioner West has seconded that. Any further discussion?
Just one,
Oh, I'm sorry.
yeah, oh, yeah, well, actually, Commissioner Helm had her light on first.
Oh, no, that was old.
Sorry, maybe left that on, my bad.
Sorry, it's okay.
So I just want to, I know that we talked about certain aspects of changes to the law, and I see legal counsel in the back of the room on this topic, and I assume that even though we have that legislation, this nuance here about if they request to do so prior to the property being sold, that doesn't circumvent their rights afterwards, obviously. And so I just, it's interesting, I just wondered how that melds together with we've been advised with as far as vulnerabilities.
Come
Yeah.
on, come on. When we talk to you in executive session, the legislation is looking forward. This is looking back. And so the dialogue regarding that is a legislative component of the tools going forward, to deal with the properties we're going to be dealing with in future years. This is dealing with properties that have already been foreclosed on, that we've been sitting on for some period of time and haven't gone to auction. And what happens is the availability to resell is a complexity associated with the Supreme Court case that we've discussed with you in private. It's another option that's out there to reduce the county's possible, I don't want to say liability because it's a possible liability. But the ability and the freedom to do that is an option that may be availed through this. So we wanted to make sure to get advanced authorization from the board to do that. Historically, we haven't done this. Historically, it's been kind of on a case-by-case basis, where you may get one individual who may make a request after the pre-deposed amount of time. And so this is a little bit different, but it's in response to to allowing council the freedom to deal with whatever options they may deal with during negotiations.
Yeah, well, as long as this is consistent with our legal advice, and I see the head nod, so I'm good to go.
All right.
It just seems like there's a sequencing thing here, I guess, from.
It's different
Yeah.
than prior year. Yeah, it totally is. Yeah. I mean, historically, and to own that, historically, we have never asked for that, granted that authority on the resale component. It's just in this set of circumstances, it seemed like a prudent thing to do to allow the possibility, so.
Okay.
All right. If there's no other discussion, clerk, would you please?
Ben
I'm
has his
sorry.
light on.
Oh, my bad. Sorry.
Yeah,
Thanks,
I'm
Paul.
18 pages here. Most of these are just weird. I don't even know how this happens, these lines. This is crazy. And can you just, and you may have already said this, but how long have we had most of these wackadoodle properties?
It depends. Some are back to 2017.
Wow.
I mean, and we get them through a variety of different means and methods. The program kind of shut down during like all the other stuff that was going on during the pandemic and all that.
Yeah.
We're retooling the program. We've got Deanne Rome, who's in the audience, who really tasked her, and she's really focused on getting these properties dealt with in an expeditious manner. We've been on delay to some extent as we got a better idea about what the Supreme Court case actually meant and what best tactic to take. And so, yeah, and go back into your weird discussion. There are some that are just strange, and you can create.
Like really strange.
Yeah, and tax lots get created through a variety of different ways. They aren't like subdivided lots in most cases or partition lots. Historically, they could be created for, you know what, I'm going to separate, I'm going to write up a written description for my driveway, and I'm not going to include it in my mortgage or something like that. And they record a document. A tax lot gets created. There are a variety of ways it happens throughout time. You may have a large acreage of land that 80 acres, and I want to take a mortgage on my house. You make a tax lot around the house versus the rest of the property, so it's not tied up in that mortgage. So,
Yeah.
I mean, and some are just oddballs that have happened since like 1910. So,
Is there a certain point where like, it's just, we need to clean them up and get them off our books that some of these I don't know if you could give away.
I completely agree with that.
So I'm looking at assessed value. I don't know how useful that information is because I'm looking at this thing, right? No one's buying that. Like, well, that's a lot of these. And so, I don't know if it's liability or whatever. We have the new ruling from the Supreme Court that we're all trying to figure out moving forward. But is there a point where we are like adjacent landowners where we can just,
We have done that in the past.
will you please take
Yep,
this?
and we've offered that in the past, and we'll probably continue to have a discussion with
And
folks
do we
about
just
that.
end up taking a loss on whatever taxes or whatever on that weird sliver? How does that?
So we have engaged adjoining property owners for various, like, for example, on all those sliver properties.
Yeah.
There's been emails, efforts that we've done that have said, hey, we have an opportunity for you to buy this property. It's adjoining yours. Would you like to have it? All you owe is, and we're not talking big dollars here.
No.
The back taxes and all that. You can collect it for the X or Y. And sometimes they've been successful and sometimes they haven't.
Is there a certain point where we're like, we're not going to recollect our costs on this and we just give it away? And we just say to the landowner, you
collecting
can.
any of our costs on it.
We're not collecting our costs. Okay, we're just trying to move off of
Trying to
these.
move, yeah, to get it back on the tax rolls. Yep,
Okay,
so,
okay, thank you.
yeah.
Any other comments? I do agree with Commissioner West. I mean, I'm looking at item number 30, which is the tiniest sliver you could ever imagine.
It's so weird.
And, you know, I just can't imagine somebody wanting to purchase that.
I think it's
so.
we're going to put these up to auction. It's a very valuable piece of property. that I-
Sorry, I'm not doing this
Endless
very well.
opportunities on that side, yeah.
Really talking it down. Right
Come buy our property, it's garbage.
Okay, maybe there's oil there or something, I don't know. All right, I think we're ready for a poll then, I guess. So, clerk?
Commissioner Schrader,
Aye.
Commissioner Helm,
Aye.
Commissioner Savas,
Why not? Yeah.
Commissioner West.
Aye.
Mr. Chair,
Aye.
motion passes 5-0, Mr. Chair.
Great, thank you so much.
And thank you to your staff for all your hard work on this. I know you've been working hard, so thank you.
Thank you.
So if there's no further business, this concludes our work today. Thank you all for joining us this afternoon, and we are officially adjourned.
Yay.